Well, let's start first with that developing story out of Haiti, where 16 U.S. citizens and 1 Canadian are still being held hostage. 5 children are among that U.S.-based missionary group that was abducted over the weekend. They were taken by a Haitian gang notorious for killings, kidnappings, and extortion. U.S. officials now say they are working with Haitian authorities to try and secure their release. Well, our international affairs commentator, Doug Herbert's been taking a closer look at this, and he joins me now on the set for more. Doug, first of all, even Haitians themselves say this particular abduction was more violent and more brazen than almost any they've seen before.
Yeah, it's true. Haitians are no strangers to kidnappings. Unfortunately, gang-type crime, including kidnappings, these types of abductions, they go back decades to the fall of the Duvalier regime in the 1990s. What's different here is that they are becoming much more brazen, and there's the sense that as Haiti falls more into anarchy, sort of almost a state without rule of law, observers speak of a failed state, which has become everything aggravated since the assassination of the country's president in July, which left this giant gaping political void, which has not been filled. And into that breach, you have seen these gangs. There's about 90 criminal gangs. Organizations operating around Haiti, but the capital alone is said to be controlled about half of it by these gangs. And when we're talking about the Haitians right now, having to adjust to a new reality, yeah, they're used to kidnappings. Yes, they're used to living in a climate of fear, anxiety, crisis, chaos, one after another, like serial chaos. What's different here is they can't really even leave their homes right now. The group that is being blamed by police, suspected of carrying out these particular abductions, a mass abduction, that's new too, taking an entire busload of people hostage, not just one person, an isolated person. They say what's new here is that it's all spiking. And it's happened so quickly to the point that a lot of Haitians feel like they cannot even go outside their houses anymore. So this has a knock-on effect. Because they're scared to walk the streets of their own neighborhoods, because they don't know whether they'll be able to actually get back home, they're not able to go out and do their jobs, to earn their livelihoods, to make a living. So obviously a country already desperately impoverished is becoming more so as a result of this gangland violence. Like I said, the group behind these kidnappings, they have been blamed in the past for rapes of women, recruiting of children, youth, making them much more violent, and it's gone from bad to worse. No one has control. Anyone can be taken hostage by them. You could be a doctor, you could be a church pastor giving a sermon, you could be a police officer driving down the street.
And as you said, Doug, this is just the latest catastrophe for Haiti after so many more earthquakes, floods.
Yeah, and it's horrible to have to speak of the country in this sort of way. It's synonymous with disaster. It wasn't always this way. Haiti used to be, a rather prosperous, country in the Caribbean, and you have to go back a long way, of course, to remember those. They weren't boom times, but they were good times, better times. And the image we associate it with now, whatever can go wrong will go wrong, left and right. Since the 2010 earthquake, a horrible, worst, most devastating natural disaster we've seen in this hemisphere in a long time, hundreds of thousands killed. You've had another earthquake recently, obviously not on that scale, thank God, but still over 2,000 killed, on top of the political vacuum I was talking about, on top of all the demonstrations we had even before the president was killed because of power cutoffs and food shortages and medicine shortages and people not having jobs. It was already dire, becoming more so now. Add to that the political instability, add to that the corruption, add to that the fact that the stores aren't operating, people won't go out onto the streets, you have gang violence, and you have a political class that is not trusted by the people and is seen as beholden to the gangs, or at least in many cases doing their bidding. That adds up to a pretty grim equation right now, and Haitians right now don't seem to have too many options.
It's a real desperate situation. Doug, thanks for that. France 24's Doug Herbert.